Alright, so here we are the morning after the Derby, and yes, indeed, we did come home with a pair of trophies. The smaller one was Best Paint, so the 12 to 2 a.m. last minute tried to do a camo paint design using the red, yellow, and blue we had left over from last year. The paint's so expensive, trying to use all that paint up first. And thought, like a lot of camo nowadays, they have kind of that flashy different colors. We also have a green, brown, and black that we'll use. But got a Best Paint. I think next time I'll make the lines more squiggly, or squiggly, I think is the word, not squibbly. But more squiggly, so it looks more kind of like not a normal shape. I didn't quite do that enough. I noticed that after I did the black, but it was late, and I was trying to just hurry up and get her painted because we wanted to go with a base camo paint job whenever we don't do something else. And still got Best Paint, so I was pretty excited about that. But we came home second place. Wasn't a ton of cars in the stock. Wasn't a ton of cars overall, other than the really big boys and the boy that they put on a show. But I think there was 9 total. We came home second, so it was Father's Day Fury 3. Father's Day Fury 2 was last year. Same event, different promoter. We ended up third out of 11, and a little bit of bad taste in my mouth. I felt like I got a cheap, quick timeout whenever it was super muddy, and toward the end, the last 3 of us, I was dragging my rear end, and I was just struggling getting traction, but I was still moving and making contact, and they timed me out. I thought it was a bad deal, but second place, the car did great. It ran about as well as I thought it would, meaning it didn't run that good. It was really weird. It's like when you put it in gear, it wouldn't go above like 2 or 3 grand. The engine just wouldn't rev, the tack wouldn't get up. I couldn't go very fast. Like if I put on a flat surface and just floored it just wouldn't go fast, but it just kept running. So couple good Derby drivers out there. The one guy did some work. You can see here my left one's fine, the steering wheel's turned to the right. You'll see over here, this guy, I couldn't move very well because I couldn't move fast. So after it got down to about 5 of us, the one guy, he was still flying around and he knew what he was doing. He slammed my front right different times, and I just couldn't move. Like I couldn't really get out of there. And then once he got me good there, I could only turn a little right. But even after that, the car just kept running. The battery setup, you can see I took a good shot over here, was phenomenal. If you're someone that derbies like me and you're like, just ratchet strap the battery, do not do that. Ratchet straps, as tight as you get them, will shimmy. The battery will shimmy loose. This is a Smith Metalwork battery box. There's other people that are brands that make them too. That baby did not move. Again, I just put seat insulation, just cut it out to secure the battery. Didn't make it get hot or anything. Put black tape over the middle there just in case my terminals kind of wiggled or came loose, but they didn't move because the battery didn't move. So the terminals never moved, and I didn't even put them on super tight. Put them on tight enough that they weren't going to move, but if I needed to take them off, try to reset the battery, I could. Stock fuel tank. You can see I took some good shots. The Spartansburg Derby pit, it's a nice long pit, and with 9 of us out there, you can get some cross-court, if you will, runs, and I wasn't doing a lot of hard hitting. I was to the floor every time. I was telling a couple guys I knew before, I said, hey, don't judge me, man. The car just doesn't seem to have much get up. The motor, I think, is pretty burnt up from the guy that had it before me. But I said, I'm to the floor every time, and I was, but the other guys, boy, they put a couple thumps on me. But had a lot of fun. Stock tank, again, it's inside the wheel well. Didn't come close to taking any sort of damage. These stock classes, especially with a bigger car, but even got the Nissan over here, I might end up doing the same thing with it. We'll see whenever we get to there. Just running this tank underneath instead of picking it up. It's inside the car. So battery worked great. Battery setup. Again, she did great. She did better than I thought. Up front, I was able to keep it pretty clean up front until the very end. The guy that was left and I, whenever we got down to the last 2, shout out to him. It was Billy Lilly, a former student of mine. Again, I'm a school teacher, but his car was a pre-ran car. He ran it a couple weeks ago at Venango, and he did great. He ran a good, smart derby, had a couple good hits, and at the end, I told him, like, we were kind of bumping each other, but I couldn't move very well, and he was still moving pretty good, but he was being smart and was just hitting me with his back. And I said, "Hey Billy, let's go nose to nose, nose to nose." So he did it, and I could move forward and back a little, but I couldn't really turn. And to his credit, he knew what he was doing. He was putting his rail, his frame rail, into my center. He could steer and move pretty good, and I couldn't. But I left again I'm not sure what it's called there, the transmission radiator or coolant. I'm not sure what that thing's called in front of the radiator, and it definitely did what they say it can do. It kind of acted as a little bit of a protectorant, and the radiator, it did kind of bust out, but not right away, and you can see it actually slid all the way into the motor, and the motor still runs. What ultimately took me out wasn't all that or anything. I busted the pedal literally in half. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. So there it is. There's what ultimately took us out of the Derby. This is my gas pedal, and you'll notice all the way up at the top where it's kind of mounted, and then you push the pedal down, does this. It snapped. So I didn't even know this was a thing with pedals until I was working on this car. Whenever I flooded the motor, if you watch my build videos and how I screwed it up, this pedal is electronic, I guess how they call it. So the pedal pushes down and back, but there's I don't call it a sensor, but a plug that plugs in right at the top of it, and that's what's reading it. So it's not a lever pedal that you push and it pulls a lever. If the pedal snapped but I still had the lever, I probably could have figured out a way to hit the throttle. When this broke, because it's an electronic pedal, there's literally nothing there for me to push. There's the plug there, but there's nothing I could do. So whenever it was down to Billy and I at the end, the last two, and we were going nose to nose, we hit each other 2 or 3 times, and all of a sudden it was like I couldn't feel any pedal. I'm like, what is going on? And I looked down, and here it was sitting beside my brake pedal. I picked it up. I'm like, that's the gas pedal. I'm like, oh no. So I'm sitting there. The car was still running. It just kept running. But I literally had no way to hit the throttle. So I picked up the pedal. I showed Billy. He started laughing, and I broke my stick. Told him, great run. So, yeah, crazy. But that's what took us out. So, again, the car did great. I mean, I didn't know if it was going to run 5 minutes. I think we went about 15 total. Didn't look at the video yet or ask my wife, but it did great. We came home second. Had a lot of fun. You can see the back. This was a pretty big car. Definitely took some good hits. Just to kind of a side note, I use the belts both here on the doors, and then I just did a little bit of duct tape this time. Same thing on the trunk, take the seat belts. Same thing up here. I just, at each corner, tied it down around the frame rail and pulled a couple tight knots as tight as I could. And I even took a couple good hits up front, and it kept that trunk lid, or both the trunk lid as well as the hood up front here, pulled down tight. So I mean, again, some guys use 9 wires, but even that stuff, everything costs crazy amount of money nowadays. Well, seat belts, as you're ripping out cars, are free. So they work great. So we'll strip her out of the stuff we can reuse and take her to the scrap. But good run. Chrysler Sebring, it was a blast. Second place and best paint. Good time.